Now, I can hardly believe this myself, but I actually got a green arrow in Game Week 8. I'm up to 450k overall, and I actually have 5 free transfers to use for Game Week 9, but I've got to get rid of Eberiche Eze. And here are my Game Week 9 transfer plans. So just a quick look at how my team got on in Game Week 8 to start with then. So Flecken in goal, made 9 saves against Man United. Obviously didn't keep the clean sheet, but he still came away with a 4-pointer. I've got to say, Brentford are a bit of the way through their good, I would say good in inverted commas, fixture run that they were having. And Flecken still hasn't kept a clean sheet. And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, could I do better? Someone like, for example, I always say this in all my videos, you probably get bored of me saying it. The best goalkeepers in FPL are ones that keep like an average amount of clean sheets and make consistent saves pretty much every game. And Flecken is making consistent saves, but he's not keeping clean sheets. And I think the likes of Onana and Pickford, maybe Martinez of Villa as well, they are the keepers that keep like the average amount of clean sheets and make a good amount of saves, sort of those three. So maybe I could look to move Flecken on. I also have Trent and Gabriel in my team at the moment. Both blanked in Game Week 8. Both have relatively tough fixtures coming up as well. I'd question if I could take either one of those out of my team. In fact, I just wanted to look at the clean sheet odds according to 11FI. So this is a projection from 11FI, ranking teams basically by their likelihood of keeping clean sheets in upcoming games. And quite a lot of weeks gone by, the best teams were sort of above 40% to keep clean sheets in some of these games, right? But I'm looking at these projections coming up for the likes of Gabriel and Trent, and they're not looking all that exciting, at least for the next sort of 3 game weeks. You know, Gabriel doesn't really exceed 35% likely to keep a clean sheet. Trent, a couple of occasions he does, but across the board, not so much. I'm asking the question of myself, with other problems I have in my team, with the projected clean sheets being so low, and you know some of these players not actually keeping clean sheets, I'm thinking Gabriel. Could I potentially look to downgrade these players and upgrade elsewhere? That's something I could potentially do and something I'm thinking about. Rico Lewis, Man City just keep shipping goals, which is quite frustrating to be honest. I don't think I have any reason to sell him. You know, I bought him for 4.6 million. And he seems to be starting regularly for Man City now. It certainly, in my opinion, looks like Kyle Walker is sort of gone down in the pecking order a little bit for Man City now. So, you know, I'm fully accepting that Rico Lewis could get benched in upcoming games, but I think simply the fact I paid 4.6 million for him, you know, I'm quite happy if that is the case. You know, I'll take that on the chin because, to be completely honest, I think he's literally as nailed as the other Man City defenders. Rodgers, a goal. Well, it was a lucky deflection goal, but it was a goal nonetheless, and a yellow card. Another blank for Eze. I would say of all the players I've got in my team, he is priority 1 to get rid of, along with Greaves. Greaves is out until sort of mid-November time, and I think I could look to move him on as well, just for a bit of bench cover. But, you know, of players that actually are going to make an impact in my team, I think priority number 1 at the moment is to get rid of Eze. I've kept the faith with him in game weeks gone by to the abuse of some of my subscribers. I think I got away with it this week. You know, my potential replacement at the time, I was thinking of going for Brennan Johnson. He blanked as well. So, you know, I didn't get punished, I guess, by keeping Eze. But likewise, I didn't score any points as a result of it either. Unfortunate blank from Bumo, but he's not going anywhere in my team. And then Salah with a goal and an assist. I just wish I captained him, basically. Chris Wood with a nice goal against Crystal Palace, albeit a little bit lucky. It does make, though, I think it's 19 goals in 28 Premier League games now for Chris Wood since the start of last season, which I'd say is a pretty respectable goal record. 19 goals, 28 starts. If a player scored 19 goals in a season, that's sort of the level of a premium forward. And Chris Wood has done that in 28 games, which is 10 less than an entire season. So, you know, I think he's insane. I think he's mega, and I have absolutely no reason to be looking to get rid of him. Solanke, I do have my doubts about Solanke. Do I think he's a priority transfer out of my team? Probably not, but I'll go through what I could potentially do with my team. He just doesn't look like he's taking up super advanced positions, and I think it's the sort of Ange Postecoglou style of football. It was seen at Celtic where his number 9 sort of sat a bit deeper and brought the 2 wider players into things to score goals. And that seems to be how Solanke is currently working at Spurs. I don't want a centre forward that plays deep. I want a centre forward that's in the box scoring goals, like Chris Wood in well, I say Haaland, he's not really done that recently, but you know what I mean. So he could potentially be on the chopping block too. And I'll talk a little bit around my plans with EZE as well, and how Solanke, maybe Trent or Gabriel will feature in that as well. A blank for Haaland. Again, I'm going to talk about him as well. There's a potential case to sell him in game weeks coming up, I think, with just thinking captaincy in general, right? As other captaincy options being available in the game and pickable, I think there is a genuine case to get rid of him. So I'll talk about all of that now. So first of all, I will talk about Erling Haaland just to kind of get that out of the way, I guess. What I thought I'd do is put together a very simple metric, or matrix, I guess is the correct word, of the players that I'd be willing to captain over the next 7 game weeks and the fixtures that they have. I would potentially add Saka to this list, but I didn't see an occasion where I'd be really happy captaining Saka. So I've just included these 4. So that is Haaland, Salah, Palmer and Son. Those are the 4 players with this run of fixtures that I'd actually feel comfortable captaining, I would say. So Haaland in Game Week 9 has Southampton at home. You know, I think there's a case to captain him for sure for that game, and also to triple captain him. I would also say, just with Haaland, I didn't actually mention this on my buy and avoid video, he's been through quite a few personal things in his life in the last couple of months, and also he's missing Kevin De Bruyne in the team and Rodri. And I think Kevin De Bruyne in particular is kind of directly linked to how well Erling Haaland plays, because, you know, he's such a good chance creator as Kevin De Bruyne. That naturally means he's going to create chances for Haaland. And without De Bruyne in the team, I really do think Man City are missing something, and Rodri as well, of course. Rodri sort of, you know, plays the sort of line cutting pass to KDB, who can find Haaland. That sort of dynamic, I think, works between the 3 players, right? I'm not saying that's the case every time, but I think you get what I mean. So I don't think Haaland has just suddenly gone bad, but I do think the lack of Kevin De Bruyne in particular is really impacting him. So something else to bear in mind. I know a lot of people are saying that he's not performing very well, etc. I don't think that's necessarily just him. So I would bear that in mind. But like I said, Game Week 9, I think there's a captaincy shout for him. Potential even to triple captain. I would say he would only realistically be a triple captain shout if we get confirmed news that Kevin De Bruyne is back and he's going to start against Southampton. If Kevin De Bruyne wasn't in the team, I wouldn't use my triple captain on Haaland. And then we look at Game Week 10, right? Haaland's got Bournemouth away, who are playing well. Palmer's got Man United away. Son's got Aston Villa at home. But Salah's got Brighton at home. Now, I think you could make a case based on current form that Salah in that game week is potentially a better captain than Haaland, right? Then Game Week 11, Haaland's got Brighton, Salah's got Villa, Palmer's got Arsenal, and Son's got Ipswich. Game Week 11, you could make a genuine case, I think, that Son is the best captain. Then Game Week 12, you've got Haaland against Tottenham, Salah against Southampton, and Palmer against Leicester. You could make a case, in my opinion, that Salah and Palmer could potentially be better captains than Haaland that week, right? Game Week 13, Haaland's got Liverpool, Salah's got Man City, Palmer's got Villa, and Son has got Fulham. You could make a genuine case, in my opinion, that Palmer and Son are better captains than Haaland and Salah, or Haaland in particular, in Game Week 13. And the story goes on for future game weeks, right, until you get to Game Week 15. So, you know, what's that? 5 game weeks, well, 5 game weeks in particular, where you could genuinely go without Haaland, because I think there's absolutely no point spending the Haaland budget on him, the Haaland amount of budget on him, unless you're going to captain him pretty much every game week. So I just wanted to say that in general. I think I will probably keep hold of him, because I think the problem is attributable to Kevin De Bruyne not being in the team, and just Man City not seeming to find a flow without De Bruyne and Rodri and just trying to work themselves out. I do think he'll come good again. You know, he's too good of a player to not continue to score goals, in my opinion. So I'm probably going to keep the faith. But I'm very cognizant and fully aware that there is a genuine case that you could go without him for a little while after this week. All right, so I mentioned plans with Eberiche Eze, and one of the things I could potentially do, if you just go back to my team, one of the things I could potentially do is sort of a double swap. So I could potentially take Eze out, downgrade one of Trent and Gabriel to someone else, downgrade Solanke, and that would allow me to upgrade Eze to someone like Son, Palmer, Saka. And what I'll do towards the end of the video is I'll go into the FPL team, pick team transfer screen and see what I can actually build by doing something like that. But there are a few bits of data and metrics that I wanted to look at first of all. And if I were to downgrade Solanke, I would naturally need to pick a good cheap striker, right? So what I've done here is ranked, well, I've got a ranking of the best cheap forwards over the next 5 game weeks, basically. The number 1 cheap forward, by the way, so this is 6.5 million and below I've ranked them by. The number 1 cheap forward is Chris Wood, but he's obviously already in my team, so I took him out of this. So we've got Raul Jimenez as the top. He's in really good form. I'm just going a bit closer to the screen to read his fixtures. Everton, Brentford, Palace, Wolves and Tottenham for his next 5. I just think that's 5 pretty good fixtures. And I also think, sorry, I hit the mic then. I also think with Andreas Pereira missing his penalty at the weekend, could that potentially mean that Raul Jimenez takes penalties? I think Marco Silva, the Fulham manager, was saying that penalty takers could change game on game in one of his previous press conferences. Based on that quote and the fact that Andreas Pereira missed his last one, Raul Jimenez scored his last one. I think he scored something like 9 penalties in a row, something like that. Or 9 from 9 is his conversion rate. For me, that would suggest that he's probably the penalty taker for Fulham. And Fulham have got good fixtures. He's 5.7 million in great form, putting up really good underlying numbers. What is there not to like? And I also see Wissa in there as well, who pre-injury was in really good form. He got 24 minutes, I think it was, against Man United. So he's definitely coming back into the fray. Brentford also have really good fixtures, like Fulham. But he's not on penalties. And I would say probably, you know, coming back from injury, etc., he's not going to start in red-hot form. At least I don't think so. So I think if I were to replace Solanke, I would probably go for Raul Jimenez. One other thing I just wanted to look at, though, before making that downgrade, upgrade, move decision, etc., is just looking at like-for-like midfielders around the same price as EZE. I know I've got 5 free transfers, but it doesn't necessarily mean I need to use a load in order to get rid of him. And looking at the Fantasy Football Hub expected points data, EZE is still the top midfielder under 7 million in the game. And it's not even close. It's literally, that's nearly 4 points difference from Garnacho. And that's over the next 5 weeks. So that's literally nearly 1 point per week he is expected to score more than any of the other players on this list. Which to me seems a little bit crazy, to be honest, because he's obviously not been in good form and I'm looking to sell him. But you know, the numbers, the underlying numbers he's put up, the historical returns he's got, and all of that is factored into this predicted points data. It's still really like an EZE, basically. And I would say the alternative I am eyeing up, it's the same as I was eyeing up last week, to be honest, is Brennan Johnson. However, I am a little bit worried about Johnson, purely because I just foresee rotation in the Tottenham front line. So we saw that Maddison only played 45 minutes against West Ham at the weekend just gone. They got Richarlison back fit, Kulusevski, Werner, I know Werner's not an option, Son. You know, they just have so many players for those positions to Spurs. I just feel like if the form drops for Brennan Johnson, he could potentially be out of the team. Whereas EZE, even though he's only got 1 attacking return so far this season from 8 games, I don't see him being dropped for Crystal Palace. And he is going to get returns at some point this season, right? He is just in a bad run of form, and Palace in general are in a bad run of form, right? So that's my decision, basically, and some of the things I'm thinking about and some of the graphics and metrics, I guess, to back up my decision making. So what I'm going to do now is go into the transfer screen and just have a play around with my team. I'll have a bit of a ramble and we'll talk through some potential moves I could make. Right, so here we are then on FPL. I've got nothing in the bank, by the way. I didn't mention that before. I've got nothing in the bank. 5 free transfers, and this is how my team is looking. So like I said, EZE is on the chopping block. I could potentially get rid of him alongside Solanke and then potentially downgrade one of my defenders. Now I look at the upcoming clean sheet odds and I think it's between Gabriel and Trent. Which one do I get rid of? Oh, we're on the wrong screen, sorry. Let's just go with Trent for now because he's a little bit more expensive. So let's see what happens if I sell Trent. So I'll just go back to the strikers. I think Jimenez is my outstanding pick at the cheap price point. So we'll stick him in. And then I will also stick in a cheap defender. So, in fact, if we just look at the Fantasy Football Hub predicted points data a second and go for defender, price 5.5 million and below over the next 5 game weeks. So number 1 is 8 Nori, followed by Dallo, Rico Lewis, Delict. So it's looking like I should probably bring in 8 Nori. So just have like 8 Nori for example's sake. So we'll bring in 8 Nori. And then I have 11.3 million in the bank. I mean, Cole Palmer could come in, couldn't he? Cole Palmer could come in. Newcastle, Man United, Arsenal in his next 3, then Leicester, Villa, Southampton. Or alternatively, rather than bring Palmer in, I could do Heung-min Son. So let's just have a look at Son a second. Then maybe if I bring Son in, it would give me a bit more in the bank as well. Yeah, so I could potentially a 5.8 for that defender there. I still quite like having Aït-Nouri in that slot. So let's just go back with Aït-Nouri. So I certainly think probably for the next 3 game weeks when Son has Crystal Palace, Villa and Ipswich compared to Palmer, who has Crystal Palace, Villa, Ipswich for Son. Palmer has Newcastle, Man United, Arsenal. And then if I did that, kept the 1.4 million in the bank, it would mean that once Son got his tough fixtures out of the way, I could get Palmer in. I don't think that's too bad a set of moves at all, to be completely honest with you. Or, alternatively, I could be really boring. In fact, it would also allow me, it would be difficult to do so ahead of him playing Ipswich, to be fair. But it would also allow me to bring in, we just go for Aït-Nouri again. It would allow me to bring in one of my favourite goalkeepers in either Pickford or Onana. Not that making a goalkeeper transfer is a priority, I guess. But it would allow me to do so. And I could also bring in Raul Jimenez there. So I'd still have 1 free transfer as well to deal with Greaves if I wanted to. But I could, if I use 4 free transfers, I could get rid of Flecken finally and do something with him. I could bring in Aït-Nouri for Trent. I could bring in Son for... who did I have there? Eze, of course. Need to get rid of Eze. And then Raul Jimenez in for Solanke. And then I also have 1.1 million in the bank. So that actually means, rather than getting rid of Trent, I could get rid of Gabriel and bring in Aït-Nouri instead. But then that would lock me out of enough. Yeah, that would lock me out of having enough money to do Son to Palmer later on. Because I really like the thought, just going back to that captaincy matrix, I really like the thought, just with captaincy in mind, of having Haaland, Salah and Palmer in my team. Because you're looking at future captaincies. You know, you could argue Salah's the best captain in 10, possibly 11. Son's best captain in 11, to be fair. But then I'll have him in my team if I go with this sort of setup. Gameweek 12, Salah's got Southampton, Palmer's got Leicester, Haaland's got Tottenham. So I'd like to have 2 of those for captaincy. Again, I could captain Palmer in Gameweek 13 and 14 as well. So yeah, I think this is probably a decent way to play my team. Obviously, I've got Trent in there at the moment. Let's get rid of him so we've got the budget. So with 4 free transfers, I could do something like this with my team. And then I'd probably start Aït-Nouri, Lewis and Aina next week. Just something to think about. I could also be really boring, right? I could just be really boring. I don't think I want to do this, but I could be really boring and literally just do Eze to Brennan Johnson for the time being. Just have Brennan Johnson in there, nothing in the bank. And I also think there is a starting 3.9 million Ipswich defender, if I'm not mistaken, in Burgess. He played 90. So especially with Greaves injured, I think Burgess will play. And my fear with, I guess my fear with Brennan Johnson and Eze is they're both currently 6.7 million. So I think there's going to be price changes basically. So just have to be cognizant of that. But if one goes up or down by 0.1 million, I still have Burgess who can come in and save me and allow me to get rid of Greaves. So those are kind of my 2 transfers decisions, I think. That sort of bigger, longer 4-move decision or just 1 transfer to do Johnson in. All right, and that's the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed that. If you found it useful and interesting, I know I rambled on a little bit there about my transfer plans, but there's just so much going on in my team at the moment, so much to think about and so many players that I could potentially get rid of and bring in that it does require a bit of chat about it. So yeah, if you enjoyed it and found it useful, please leave me a like rate and let me know in the comments what you think I should do with my team. I think that's pretty much everything, other than if you're not subscribed already, please do. You can hit the button that should be just there on your screen. Thank you very much for watching, and I will catch you in my next video.